We usually, we study their victory.
Right, the big triumphs.
Exactly. But today, we're looking at a script that suggests a leader's greatest asset isn't their talent. It's actually their deepest, most traumatic childhood wound.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept. We're doing a deep dive into a scripted conversation called Our Journeys Are Different.
And it imagines Isaac, Joseph, and David like these three monumental historical figures gathering to discuss the early pain that shaped them.
And what the source material does here is, well, it's pretty incredible. It doesn't just list their historical achievements.
Right.
It makes this distinct argument about how radically different types of early trauma forge different styles of leadership. And it ultimately warns us against the trap of comparing our own personal journeys.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So the script starts by contrasting acute, sudden traumas, beginning with Isaac and Joseph.
Right.
Isaac distills his childhood wound down to a single word, which is fear.
Total fear.
He remembers climbing the mountain with his father, carrying the wood, and then the sheer terror of realizing that he was the sacrifice.
It's a complete inversion of how that story is usually told.
Yeah, you usually hear about Abraham's faith.
Exactly. But instead of focusing on the father's faith, the script flips the lens to the child tied to the altar, realizing he has, absolutely zero say in his own fate.
But wait, how does a kid come back from that? I would think realizing you have no control over your life would just, paralyze you with anxiety.
You'd think so, yeah.
So how does the script argue that this actually helped him?
Well, the source material proposes that this terrifying lack of control is exactly what taught him deep, lifelong dependence.
Oh, interesting.
Because he learned firsthand how quickly life can change, the script argues he developed a reliance on faith over his own agency. It forged a leader who prioritized peace and avoided conflict because he understood the fragility of control.
Okay, that makes sense for Isaac. But Joseph's acute trauma is fundamentally different.
Very different.
His defining word is betrayal. It's like if Isaac's trauma is like the ground suddenly giving way beneath you, Joseph's betrayal is like looking down and seeing your own family actively cutting the ropes to your safety net.
That is a perfect way to put it. And what makes those cut ropes so defining is the silence that followed.
Yeah.
Joseph explicitly states his worst day wasn't being sold into slavery.
Wait, really? It wasn't?
No, he says it was the pit. It was listening to his brothers, his own blood relatives, debate whether he deserved to live, and realizing they wanted a future without him.
Jeez. So how does that specific wound translate into a leadership strength?
The script draws a direct line between his powerlessness in the pit and his later mercy.
I see.
Because Joseph knew exactly what it felt like to be discarded by his own family, he developed an acute empathy. The text argues that when he finally achieved absolute power in Egypt, that early trauma served as a mechanism preventing him from inflicting that same powerlessness on others.
Wow. Okay, so while Isaac and Joseph's worldviews were shattered by sudden violent moments, David's story shows us what happens when a wound is a slow, chronic burn.
Right, the slow burn.
His defining word is rejection.
Because when the prophet Samuel came seeking Israel's next king, David was simply left out.
Yeah, he wasn't even invited inside.
Exactly. His father left him alone in the field while his brother stood before the prophet.
He says in the script, "When I faced Goliath, that wasn't the first giant I had encountered. I had been fighting the giant of rejection my entire life."
Such a powerful line.
But being chronically overlooked seems like it would just breed resentment. How does the field function as a training ground?
The scripts makes a fascinating theological argument here. It suggests that this isolation forced David to source his confidence entirely from his faith, rather than, seeking validation from his family.
Oh, because he couldn't get it from his dad anyway.
Right, because he couldn't rely on his father's approval, the field taught him a fierce, independent courage that he just wouldn't have developed inside the comfort of the house.
So we have the altar, the pit, and the field.
3 completely different roads.
But they share a common thread in this narrative. Each man's greatest strength, trust, empathy, and courage was forged directly inside their deepest wound.
The ultimate takeaway here isn't just some generic idea that pain makes you stronger. The source material argues that your specific brand of suffering is building a highly specialized tool that you will inevitably need later.
Which means comparing our journeys is totally pointless.
Completely.
You don't know the mountain someone else climbed, the pit they survived, or the battles they fight in private.
The paths aren't right or wrong. They're just uniquely tailored.
Uniquely tailored. I love that. So think about those polished bronze statues of leaders and the invisible anvils where they were hammered into shape. If your current deepest struggle, your unique wound, is actually a perfectly customized training ground, what specific strength is it preparing you for right now?